What is up? Just hanging out, smoking this little mirror. Yes, it's a mirror. I know it looks like briar, but it's a mirror. With some year-old Joe Krantz. Old Joe Krantz that I found. I'm reading a book right now, kind of out of my typical range of things that I enjoy reading. But I've heard a bunch of people, speakers mostly, reference this guy, and I thought I would read some of his stuff and see what I thought. Carl Jung. Swiss psychoanalyst from the early part of last century, 20s, 30s. This book's called Man in Search of a Soul. And it's a series of lectures that he did that he compiled into this book, like a dozen of them or so. This particular chapter, he's talking about dream analysis. I'm not really overly interested in that subject, although he makes it pretty interesting. But I ran across a few lines that he wrote that I thought were just great. Could have been written in 1500 BC. Would have and will stand the test of time for centuries to come. First one is, no language exists that cannot be misused. I thought, how incredibly relevant that is to today's general conversation. Today's public discourse, I should probably say. And I thought about it in terms of, English, Farsi, Japanese, Dutch, whatever, but also in terms of like the language of love, the language of music, the language of humor, whatever. No language exists that cannot be misused. I think the way that it seems most relevant to me currently is in what I call the weaponizing of language. People egregiously change the meanings of words, place labels on people with certain words and things like that in a malicious way. Think about how often words like racist or sexist or Islamophobe or homophobe or something like that get tossed around. And they're often not meant to say, hey, that thing that you just said or that action that you just did is not right. It reeks of racism or whatever. Let's see if we can correct that. That's not the intent. The intent is to destroy people by labeling them with such things. It's become a rallying cry of people with no better ideas, in my opinion. So I thought that was incredibly relevant to today. Second one was, it's hard to realize how badly we are fooled by the abuse of ideas. Think about that. There's a few things in there that caught my attention. First of all, the abuse of ideas. Is that relevant or what? And then how we're fooled by the abuse of those ideas. People will buy into anything. If you see it on the internet, you can just about guarantee that half of the population will buy into it, no matter what it is. The third part was, it's hard to realize how badly we're fooled. People are just absolutely blind. They don't think they're being fooled. They think they're being fed truths that are set in stone. Most people don't believe they have the capability to be fooled by something like that. And so they deny that they have been fooled. Here's an idea. I'm going to twist it, abuse it, and then lay it on people. And then because they're so smart, they're not going to think for themselves. They're just going to say, yep, that's right. This guy's a horrible person. How do you know he's a horrible person? Because I heard 30 million other people say he was a horrible person. But must be true. My pipe's gone out. So I thought that one was a really good one. And the last one, it is only in actual contact with the facts as they occur that we can come to anything like a satisfactory agreement. Think about that in the realm of debate and conversation and arguments and things like that. People are never going to agree unless they delve into the actual truth of the matter, the facts of the matter. Once two people can come to the conclusion that a thing is true, whether they ascribe to that or think it's a good thing or a bad thing, once they come to the conclusion that a thing is real and true, then they can have a debate on it. But in today's society, there's no such thing as truth. Truth is relative to a person. And I disagree with that concept. You see a meme I've seen or whatever, the truth isn't concerned about your feelings. Or you've seen the opposite, my feelings aren't concerned about your truth. Until people can get over that division, they're never going to come to any kind of agreement that leads to a path forward, that leads to progress. We're just going to keep devolving as a society. And I mean, it's already starting to happen, but we're going to continue to devolve into a species that just stands, on opposite sides of the street throwing rocks at each other. You're different than me, therefore you must be attacked. And I've talked about that before. It has roots that go back centuries into tribalism, into the dawn of mankind. They don't look like us, therefore they're enemies. They don't think like us, therefore they're enemies. They don't agree with me, therefore they're enemies. And you see that in some really weird ways. You see that happening in some really weird ways. You see, like, people on the left attacking fellow leftist-leaning people because they don't fully ascribe to everything in their little sphere. Oh, you believe these 6 things like I believe, but this one thing you don't, therefore you don't belong. Same thing on the right, same thing in the middle, same thing across races, across sexes, across everything. If I'm not far right and I have an opinion that's different from you, but I feel like you're right of me, then you're far right. Same thing for the left. If you believe in pro-choice or pro-life, there's very little overlap of acceptance in those 2 spheres. You're just a horrible person because you don't believe the same thing I believe, regardless of what else we have in common. I think Jung was way ahead of his time, at least with those statements. And admittedly, I don't know much about Carl Jung or his ideas or his teachings or whatever. Probably never will, but I just found it incredibly interesting that something that was written or said 100 years ago was so in tune with today's society. You see that in other places, Greek philosophers, founders of the country, founders of other countries, that kind of thing. Anyway, just some stuff to think about. Let me know what you think. I would probably find it interesting. I'm gonna go load this pipe up with some more Joe Krantz. Try to enjoy my Saturday. I hope you do the same. You guys enjoy your pipe.
Sorry.
And ignore the hype.